So we return to the question of why some countries have so much less wealth and technology than others. Has state capitalism become global crony capitalism? Wealthy countries with stronger governments have the resources to subsidize their own industries and to coerce other governments to open up opportunities for foreign MNCs. The World Bank and International Monetary Fund give loans and guidance to developing countries, but they do so under the influence of wealthy countries. Loans given to weak and corrupt governments and local elites may not provide benefits to everyone, but everyone is subjected to their debt. Those international coalitions can then enforce austerity measures on weaker governments to cut spending on their own people and industries and open up to foreign control. And it seems to be working, as average incomes in the wealthy countries are rapidly increasing. And remember that in many countries, the greatest individual income gains are at the top internally as well. So what do these corporations have to gain investing in other countries? They make profit so long as they can get resources and produce goods cheaply. So their motivation is to invest only in those industries that will serve their interests, not necessarily those that will benefit locals. They import technology that depends on foreign assistance, make use of local elites to run businesses, sell back goods that are unavailable locally but still unaffordable to many. They can even make profit by buying up resources that locals need and selling them back. Often they can pay wages higher than local businesses, and the technology and training they bring in can help the economy grow overall. But inequality, both within countries and globally, also tends to grow. Dividing the whole human population into equally sized quintiles shows an even greater income stratification than within the United States. And in terms of overall wealth, over 93% of global wealth is controlled by only 20% of us. In fact, recent studies indicate that just 1% of the population controls half of all wealth. Some of that global elite lives in poorer countries, but most live in wealthy places, and include even some middle-class workers in the United States. But the higher you go, the more extreme it gets. The same studies show that the wealthiest 62 individuals on the planet may own as much wealth as half the population. There are many reasons poverty is decreasing in most of the world, and modernization is a major factor. But global capitalism as it stands is leaving many behind, and life-threatening poverty persists. We have about 15% poverty in the United States, but that is relative poverty. People too poor to live with the same basic quality of life as others in their society. But absolute poverty means being so poor that even the basic necessities of life, including food and shelter, are out of reach. And there are still over 1 billion people in extreme absolute poverty, and about 10 of them die from the weakness of malnutrition every minute. This problem is worst in those countries that have failed to modernize and gain the macro-level structural mobility that gives individuals opportunities for success. Finally, we'll touch briefly on one of the larger issues facing humanity: global climate change that results from an overall warming, most likely caused by industrial machines from cars to power plants releasing vast amounts of greenhouse gases. You can see in red that the wealthiest countries release far more than their share, but newly modernizing countries are catching up. But it is the poorest people that often suffer the most from industrial pollution and disasters. Environmental regulations in wealthy areas push the dirtiest industries into poorer areas, where poor people cannot afford to move or get clean food and water, much less fight for their right to a healthy life and environmental justice. Increasingly, we see refugees from areas destroyed by both war and environmental damage immigrating in search of a decent place to live. There are many things those who have been more privileged in the process of globalization can do to decrease damage and improve opportunities for the world's poor. We'll look briefly at some of them in the next module. But we have to be careful that we aren't making choices for others without their consent and without real understanding of what they want. Just as we often disagree about how to make our society better here, there's disagreement within any society. Who are we to say that our culture, our industry, our Gesellschaft society are the best way for people to live?